Hey, what's going up, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Filzys Workbench. Where I last left off, I was assembling the Zero and I was getting ready to putty and fill in seams. Well, here's a quick update what I'm doing. In case anybody wonders, I just got home from work, so I figured do a quick thing before I go do what I gotta do. So here's what's been going on. Engine's been assembled and ready to go. I did my usual. It's actually pretty easy to put together, so that wasn't a problem. Yeah, it was just you had the two rows of cylinders. You had the front, as well as the back here. This is pretty normal right here. Parts have been primed. I did some priming here, not for the little ones. I kept them on the sprue because I was afraid I was going to lose them during assembly or during the assembly stage and painting stage. I'm notorious for it. Of course, more here. I used the earlier nose for the prop here. This has also been primed. This is going to be painted in aluminum, which is pretty common for the early variants of the Zero. Now, as for the airframe itself, I had a little bit of issues here and there, mostly of my doing. I blundered the wing pretty bad as compared to every other Hasegawa Zero I built. I blundered it a little bit, so I had to do more seam filling and sanding than usual. Which my main concern was the wing roots. The rest of the wing was fine. The fuselage was fine. I still got to sand the little insert here and there, so I may have to strip that and sand it down a bit because the inserts they use in their molds. Otherwise, everything else went okay. But I got everything puttied, sanded, filled. Now, as for the wing roots, I had to crank the wings up a little bit, put a little pressure, so this way the gaps were minimal. Use the Tamiya's extra thin cement for them instead of the 10X7R. No good reason for it. I didn't want to sand any more than I had to. Once the gaps were minimized, I filled with Tamiya putty and Tamiya surface primer, which is somewhere. I don't know where I put it, like I always do. Oh, it's right here in front of me, which is over here. I used that for any smaller gaps, sanded everything down. It actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. Once all said and done, went with the primer, including the cowling. Now, before I go back to the airframe, cowling, since I had to do my research, I had to make sure the exhausts were on the 4th flap, not the 5th. So I made sure of that, glued them in place, sanded them down. Also had a little bit of trouble fitting the cowling to the rest of the fuselage, so this little area here I had to trim a little bit so it would fit even with the rest of the airframe, as you can see right here. Before I did trimming and sanding, it was actually a little higher. It was a little higher, and I didn't want to deal with that, so I had to do some careful sanding and careful trimming, and now it fits even with this, as you can tell. Now, once I got everything said and done, I moved on to the priming stage since I use acrylics. You notice this is gray. Now, when I did the prototype, I actually used the red primer right here. Now, the reason why I went with the gray is very, very simple. I will show you in a little bit. Give me a few minutes. Seconds to get this. That's what I'm looking for. This is what we're using right here for AK Interactive. Now, the AK Interactive paints, I use these a lot for World War II Japanese aircraft. And if you noticed, even though this is supposed to be an amber gray, it's more of it's hard to describe. It's like an gray olive, I don't know what it is. And the reason for this is because for a while, we all thought the Zeros were just gray, like a chalky gray, and more research shows that, no, it is not a chalky gray. It's actually more of an olive gray olive color, and I actually have two of these. I actually have this, and then I have Tamiya's gray-green, which I'm not going to be using. I used that for the prototype in the last video, if you watched that. So I'm going with this, and this is an interesting color. So I was afraid if I used the red primer, it would end up looking more of a tan, which is not what I want, since I want to stick with this color. That's why I went with the gray. And maybe in a future video, I'll discuss the effects of a primer when you use it to paint. Now, the reason the gray primer, it's neutral. It doesn't change anything whatsoever. You can leave If I had a lighter gray primer, I would have used it, but I didn't. So I stuck with this stuff right here. This is actually pretty good since I do simple projects. So that's why I'm going to be using this. As for the cowling, for the research of World War II Japanese aircraft, the Mitsubishi built Zeros had more of a blue-black on the cowling, and I think it was on the deck of the cockpit itself, which is right over here. I'll be spraying, probably painting that blue-black, and I will definitely do the cowling. So you can also mix your own color, but AK Interactive had a whole series of these, and I saw them and was like, you know, I better pick them up since I'm building a Zero like crazy. And I'm glad I did, because this is actually pretty good. This is a very distinct color. Same goes for the amber gray, as well as the set. Now, the AK Interactive World War II Japanese aircraft set has specific colors, including yellow, 2 different greens for the cockpit. One is Nakajima, the other is Mitsubishi. There was also another gray called High Eero. That's the name of the color on the bottle. I forgot what they used that for. And as for the amber gray, this is the main color on the Zero. Now, the interesting part about the Zero color is it, for some reason, tends to get darker before it finally gets chalky and gray. Now, the reason, and I don't know why. I really don't understand. I don't know if there's a lot of speculation about it. Varnish, the quality of the paint, but that's what it does. It's kind of like a linseed oil. It starts getting darker before it finally starts to fade away. So I'll be using that. Now, after I do the painting and stuff on the Zero, I'll explain more about why I did what I did. But as it stands right now, that's the basics of it. Of course, the interior, the landing gear, I'll be doing something interesting too. So I'll explain more of that on the next video, but this is what I got for now. Everything's already set and ready to prime. Oh, that reminds me, back to the airframe. I did my research on the Model 11 and the Model 21 Zero, which I'll explain in a future video when I build the next Zero. There's the ends of these wings here. These are balances that they used on the early Zeros, and I did my research, and it turns out the one I'm working on also has these balances. So I had to go look at my another Zero kit that I had, figure out where these went, cut out holes, glue them in. I also put balances up top right here. And since I'm only doing a single color subject, I figured I'd glue the horizontal tails to the airframes. This way, less hassle of how can I put this? Masking, painting, flipping them over when they're dry. This way, all done in one shot. Same thing with the landing gear. And that's basically it. So this is what I do have for now. And hopefully in the next video, I will give you a massive update and I'll explain more as I go. But that's it. So take it easy, happy modeling, and talk to you guys again soon. Gotta go.